Hey everyone, it's Irene. It is Monday, the 18th of September. I'm going to pop in live here on Instagram. We might share this video on Facebook and on YouTube. So if you're watching this on Facebook or YouTube, or heck, maybe Twitter, just know that this was originally recorded on Instagram. Okay, so first thing, welcome everyone here. There are many new followers and people coming into our world as we are in a very busy week, and now it's the last couple of days where my team and I are enrolling new people into my 12-week curriculum called SmartBodySmartMind. Let me sit back a little bit here. And this curriculum has been around for a while. It is definitely not new. I can safely say that I was the first somatic experiencing Feldenkrais somatic practice practitioner, it's a mouthful, to put this work online back in 2012-ish, 2013, with the intent to teach people how to become their own medicine, how to restore regulation to their systems, to their nervous system, so that they can heal dysregulation and heal trauma. So, that's the first thing. So I've been doing this for a while. My team and I have been around the block. We are really experienced in online learning, online education, and then the therapeutic benefit that occurs when we work with ourselves, and I might add, take responsibility and ownership and commit to ourselves on this learning, healing journey path, whatever you want to call it. Now, always when we open up registration, there will be people who have been waiting for registration to open for months, because we only open registration twice a year. That's kind of end of February usually, and now sort of classic beginning of the school year. So with this, there's some of you who know darn well, yep, I'm joining. You've already joined. Maybe you have joined. Let me know if you have. There are many of you who've already done some of my smaller online courses, namely the 21-day nervous system tune-up. And I'm going to answer what the differences are between the two. So some of you have been waiting. Others, you're brand new here and you're like, it's a bit overwhelming to take in what this work is about, who the heck am I, and why should you trust me, and why should you commit to doing this course. And of course, the financial investment is $2,000 US. All that information is on the site, or a 12 pay of $197 a month for 12 months. That seems like a lot, I know, at the onset, and when you consider how many of my students who have been with me for years will say, I have been trying to work on this thing, this problem, this relationship, this mental illness, chronic illness, whatever it might be. I've been working on this for years. For some people in their 60s and 70s, 80s, and this is true, we have students who are in their elder years. They've been trying to figure this stuff out for a lifetime, literally a lifetime. And this is, as they say, their words, not mine, the only thing that finally put the pieces together. And I just did an earlier live on Zoom, and it should be up on YouTube, if not now, shortly. I'm going to check to see if it's there. Many of these students that I did this live with, and I want to start with this, and I'm getting used to this new chair, so excuse if I'm a bit fidgety. These alumni that we talked to today, it's still not up there yet, it will be soon. They said, and many of them said when they started talking, I can't actually remember how I was and how I felt when I started this work 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, they have to go back into their memory banks and remember what it was like to be unwell. And it's kind of interesting when you consider that some of them are much younger and they've gotten into this work more recently, and they have shifted a lot in, say, a year or 2 years or 18 months. But the fact that they find it hard to recall their mental illness, their chronic illness, their fatigue says a lot, right? So they're not living in that zone of always being unwell, and they're thriving. Does not mean that they're perfect, but they have way more regulation than they did when they started. So if you're new here, these conversations with my alum are wonderful to watch, because it just shows, not from my voice, but from their voice, where they were at, what they went through to heal and learn, and where they are now. And most of them will say, this was the thing that finally put all the pieces together. And these are some people who have been through deep, deep training in the psychological and somatic healing arts. So that is what I've created. I've created something that can take you from some pretty deep, deep places of terror, pain, anxiety, you name it, unsafety, dysregulation, and through learning, because it is not one-on-one therapy, and it's not even group coaching therapy, and most of, if not every single person within the alum that I've interviewed, as with hundreds of others, thousands of others, I have never met any of these people in person, and they had the shifts and the changes without me guiding them personally. And that says a lot. The curriculum is super robust. It is not something that one usually gets through in 12 weeks. It takes a few rounds to move through the material and the education, but it teaches you how to restore capacity, somatic awareness, regulation, and from that is how we heal our traumas. Versus focusing on the problem, focusing on the trauma, focusing on the bad things that happen to us. So we're not focusing on any of that stuff. If you want to share your story, that is 100% fine. But we never, ever in this course ask you what happened to you. When was it? How severe was it? What are your illnesses? What are your troubles? We don't ask you that. None of my business, none of my team's business. If you want to share, there's places for you to share, to connect with other peers, but we don't focus on the problem. We focus on restoring regulation. We focus on restoring connection to self, connection to the environment, and then bringing them together through the curriculum. I am not going to list every single thing that you get in SmartBodySmartMind, because all of that is on our website, the registration and information page. That's where you find that information. It's there for you to take in. So head over there and check that out after this video. Or head there now and then come back and catch the replay. So there's 3 questions that people ask, got the post-it note, my team are getting via email. And oh, by the way, on the registration page, there is an FAQ page, also known as a FAQ page. On that FAQ page are questions and answers to the things that were asked over and over again. And these are questions, the ones I'm going to go through are on that FAQ page, but I'm going to review them right now on this video. So, will this heal my XYZ? What that means is, will this heal my enter in your thing, enter in the psychiatric condition, enter in the chronic illness, enter in the relational trouble, enter in the myriad of things that we know are connected to dysregulation of the nervous system. I even did a video, I looked it up a second ago, it was in August, it was literally titled, "Will this heal my XYZ?" in quotes. And in that video, I go into a bit more detail. So if you are interested in a deeper dive, be sure to check that out. And the way for me to answer this question is, for the most part, this course, this program, this learning the curriculum, it will give you the tools to gain regulation of your autonomic nervous system by working with what's called the peripheral nervous system, which is where the autonomic nervous system lies. Our movement, our sensation, our sound, our connection to our interoception, all of this is what we do, plus learning the theory, super important. Deeper theory than what occurs in my YouTube videos and such. It's a much deeper theory. That information and that practice builds your somatic capacity, your nervous system regulation. It helps you notice when you are in fight, flight, freeze, and it also helps move you out of that survival stress and into more, we could say, social engagement, or into more rest, digest. For those who are really stuck in deep freeze, we may need to activate some of our fight flight. This is where setting boundaries, healthy aggression, noticing what we might consider anxiety when that comes up. Our panelists, the last 2 times we've talked to them on Friday and again today, have said, and more so on Friday's call, that knowing the education and getting out of their survival responses, one of the side effects is feeling what we would call a low-level anxiety. This is something I've experienced deeply in the last couple of years, and it's not a backwards progress. It's actually a forwards progress, because it shows the freeze response, the collapse, is no longer living in your system. So the fight and flight that has been buried for some of us since before we were born through our ancestry is starting to come up. And so this is why the education is so important, because if you don't get that education and the whys, one might think that they're going absolutely insane, and yet they're not. They're actually healing. It just seems a bit different because we attribute healing with just feeling fine and feeling great and calm, and that's not always the case. So back to the question, will this heal my XYZ? From what we've seen, when we have regulation on board, it heals so many things. Things that we would classify as syndromal. These are and I'll just list some: fibromyalgia, chronic pain, chronic fatigue, Raynaud's, IBS, RSD, ADD, ADHD, depression, chronic anxiety, panic attack, agoraphobia, all the phobias fall into this. Inability to connect with the world, dissociation, somatic dissociation, severe migraine headaches, severe premenstrual syndrome. There's so many neurological conditions that we can connect with dysregulation of the nervous system, and it's becoming more and more known that a lot of the psychiatric diagnosis that fall within the DSM, this is the Diagnostic Manual for Psychiatry, not just me, but my more senior mentors in the field, folks like Gabor Mate, Bessel van der Kolk, Bruce Perry, they have said over and over again, they don't like to use labels anymore because it doesn't help the process of healing the nervous system and healing trauma. And secondly, all of those diagnoses can be traced back to early wounds, early trauma, attachment rupture, developmental trauma, in utero trauma, severe adversity growing up. So when we get this work on board and we restore regulation to our system, because that autonomic nervous system touches every system in our body, including our brain, these things shift. Hormones, I didn't mention that. The immune system, I forgot to mention that. The cardiovascular, respiratory system, didn't mention that. I can only mention so many things, but if you just go through the whole physiology, these things shift when we restore regulation to the nervous system. Now, is this the only thing? No, we need to eat well. We need to exercise. We need to have a clean environment that does not have toxins in them. We want to, if we can, limit Environmental and pharmaceutical toxins that get into our system that throw things off. These are things that are real. And I have been sometimes ridiculed isn't the right word, but said, hey, Irene, you're not talking about any of these other things. And you're right, I don't talk about them a lot because one can only speak and teach on so many topics at once. But I am very aware that these other elements do play a part. But I will say this, when we have more baseline regulation on board, what do you think happens? We become more aware of the toxic environment, whether it's things or people. We become more discerning about what we put into our bodies, what we allow to happen to us. We become more aware of, oh my gosh, there's sunshine outside. I might go outside. Or I'm feeling a desire for fresh air. I better go outside. I feel a desire to move, to exercise. When we have more regulation on board, these lifestyle habits that we know influence and complement good health and healing, and all the things that go with it, they start to happen more naturally. So, will this heal my XYZ? Again, I can't say with conclusive 100% yes it will, but I've seen almost every story, not every story obviously, but a lot of stories of significant things that were deemed incurable shift. And that's not because I'm a miracle worker, it's just because I've created this fabulous curriculum, and then the student trusts their system. And of course, the background I have and the evidence and the testimony of my students, and they're like, I think I'm going to give this a try. And then things shift dramatically. I can't tell you how many times I've heard from our students, and some said this on the Friday alumni call, I would not be here today if it wasn't for this course. And that's on them. They're the ones doing the work. They're the ones showing up. So yes, I'm providing a robust curriculum with 15 plus years of my education and knowledge and practice as a practitioner, as a teacher, as an educator in that course, in this Smart Body, Smart Mind curriculum. But you, the person, you have to be committed to working with yourself and working through the demons and the monsters and all the things that might keep you from moving forward. So just becoming a member and saying you've got SBSM doesn't cut it. You have to do the work. So some self-drive is important. Your ability to ask us questions is important. We have a forum, many forums where you can ask questions of everything you are learning and studying, and we encourage that. And I have 10 other team members who are all professionally trained in somatic experiencing and in many other somatic practices, including psychotherapy and counseling. They are working for you within the forum to help you through the educational process and guide you. So you don't just get this and then that's it. We are really with you. My team is with you from when we begin this Thursday up until January, I was going to say June, January 2024. So we even go beyond the 12-week curriculum. We stay in there, consider it kind of like office hours. We keep the forum open. We answer your questions. The content is yours for life. So as long as the program is around, the internet is around, even if I am gone and I'm abducted by God knows who, or if I, for whatever reason, heaven forbid, are no longer here, the course will still be yours. The curriculum will still be yours to practice, to work with, because everything is there for you. Does this mean that you might not work with a practitioner or go see an osteopath or have some massage therapy or work with a counselor? Of course not. Many of my students still work with practitioners when they can, if resource allows for it. That is 100% good, but it's not mandatory. So everybody's a little different. It depends on what kinds of things they're working with. I personally have had way too many accidents that I can tell you right now. So many concussions, so many whiplashes, so many surgeries and broken bones. Even to this day, I am still working regularly with osteopaths and body workers because of my old injuries, all the scar tissue that I'm still working with For me, it's an ongoing process, but my system is regulated. My system is out of functional freeze, and that's what's really important to understand, is when we move through this work and get this regulation on board, our knowledge of what to do to help our systems is that much cleaner and clearer. And we know where to go. We know where our impulses take us. Is like, I've been doing this practice for so long and something's telling me this isn't good for me anymore. I think I might shift to this. Those sorts of things start to become more clear. The other question that is often asked is, how do I know if it's the right time for me to start this? Now, I can't really tell you when you should begin this work. If you're here and you're watching this and registration is open and there's this pull, there's this draw, and the investment will still allow you to eat food and shelter yourself and your children and pay your bills and all those things. You know, if you have some disposable income and some credit, because that's how some people pay for this, it's how it works, right? That's how we buy some of our computers and cars and all this stuff. Sometimes we have to have credit and we have to pay these things off. It's just the way it is. So let's just say there's a draw, and yes, you have a little bit of extra and you can handle this. I will say there could be a reason that this information is coming into your awareness right now. Often people worry that they're not going to have the capacity to keep up with the course, to participate. And that's a worry that's valid, because it's possible you've tried to do other things and you have not been able to follow through, complete, or keep going. I would say the difference in Smart Body, Smart Mind is that the course is structured such that you can go at your own pace. And if your capacity is like this small, you just need to work a little bit, just so that it gets a little bit bigger. And then you might hang out there for a few months, repeating the same lessons, learning the education over and then over again. And then when you feel that there's a little bit more space, you go a little more. You push the boundary a little bit more, and then your capacity grows a little bit more. And then you repeat this over and over and over again. It's just like a child learning how to move, learning how to walk, learning how to talk, learning a new skill. You can't teach that little newborn baby how to walk in one day, let alone a couple of weeks or a couple of months. They need to do it slowly over time. So this is the same thing. Rewiring the nervous system, regulating the nervous system, it requires this, what we call titrated, step-by-step, drop-by-drop, millimeter-by-millimeter approach. And so the timing, you have to feel into that. We'll run this again in the new year. And if you can, starting now means you'll be that much more ahead and have that much more capacity come the new year. Another thing that people often ask is, I don't feel safe enough. So let's say you're truly living in a war-torn zone and you don't have food, you don't have electricity, you don't have running water. You are literally in that level of survival that you don't know where your next meal is going to come from. Then that is a level of unsafety that I would say is not well suited to this course and program. But if you have those things cared for, we would call this Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you're a little higher up the self-actualization pyramid and you have these basic needs met, then this is the time to start. Our safety is created as we regulate our nervous system. Our deep internal felt sense safety that says to us, there are no threats around me right now. I'm actually at peace. There are no threats around me. And there really are not any threats, right? Versus someone is in the comfort of their own home, all the doors are locked, and yet they feel still terrified. That is cellular safety. That is not cellular safety. That is safety that is not there. That's what I was trying to say. But we can't get that safety on board if we don't work with our survival stress. I'm going to say that again. It is very hard to get that safety on board, that cellular safety, if we don't work at the level of our physiology, our biology, these nervous system levels, working with what is called the interoception. It doesn't happen. We can't think our way through this. We cannot journal our way. We cannot mantra our way. We can't cold plunge our way. We can't biohack. We can't even breathe. Breath work will not get to this deep level of physiological unsafety. And again, I know it's hard to understand how that works in this curriculum when you haven't done it yet. And this is where I encourage you to listen to the stories of our alum, specifically the one that happened on Friday. That was a bit more robust in terms of talking about these base level fears and troubles and ailments. And then of course, so many other testimony and stories on our site. So I hope that answers the question to what if I'm not ready? How do I know if I'm ready? What if I don't feel safe? Those are the things I want to say. Yes, someone has answered a question that someone asked. Everything is recorded. Everything is recorded. So we have live calls. All of my lessons are recorded on audio. The education part of it is video training that I've recorded where you watch a video and it is interactive and that I'm posing you questions and having you notice your body. And then the training calls that I do are also interactive on Zoom for this round. So while you're not necessarily talking to me and asking me questions, we are in this fall season live with me, and I am teaching education. All of the stuff, anything that happens on Zoom, it is recorded. You get the audio, you get the video, you get the gallery view, and you get the transcript that's professionally transcribed if you prefer to read the information. So everything is recorded. There is no need, no obligation for you to show up live. And bear in mind that many people are not in my time zone. They're down under, they're in Europe, they're in Asia, they're in just places and spaces and jobs where they cannot attend a call when we have them. And that's the reality of global learning and healing, and many people take in the recordings. Just looking through here. So tomorrow is the final day. So the registration is open for today. Today's Monday, the 18th, and tomorrow is Tuesday, the 19th. So registration is open till the end of tomorrow, Tuesday, September 19th. It is the year 2023. Just going through the chat here. The next question I wanted to answer, a lot of people ask, what is the difference between the 21-day nervous system tune-up and Smart Body, Smart Mind? So, history lesson. If you have a question, put it in the chat. I'll see if I can get to whatever is in the chat. SBSM was created first. So Smart Body, Smart Mind was really the first curriculum that I developed, I put online, and it continues to be the most robust online program that I have. 21-day nervous system tune-up is a lower price. It's just under $300. It's 21 days of learning, right? Smart Body, Smart Mind, the 12-week course, that is 10 modules of learning, weekly Q&A calls, weekly training calls, and a plethora of other resources. SBSM has 36 neurosensory exercises. So someone asked, what are the lessons about? I wish this was easy for me to explain. What the lessons are about, it is reteaching you how to reconnect to your physiology, your somatic body, your movement, your thinking, your action, your behavior, your stress responses. It's bringing you into your tissues. I literally teach you how to work with your organs, with your skin, with your fascia, with your bone, with the areas around the diaphragms, the pelvis, the upper lung, the brainstem, the gut-brain axis. This is where the vagus nerve comes in. I need a little water. So the lessons are a blend of my experience and my practice in the Feldenkrais method. This is mind-body retraining. I'm really oversimplifying that, but that is one of the primary things. Somatic experiencing, this is the work of Peter Levine, something I am highly trained in. And then somatic practice, this is the work of Kathy Kane. That is working with the elements of the body, I call them the stress organs, for the purpose of restoring safety, what we would call coherence, so flow, aliveness, and the ability for us to tune into these organs. Now, I'm going to shelf the 21-day versus SBSM just for a moment. I'm going to come back. So, early baby lesson. When we're born, as human beings, we are not self-regulating. We do not have self-regulation on board. Okay? I think we all know this. If you don't know this, you know this now. This is why a baby can't talk, why they can't walk, why they can't feed themselves, and if they cry, they need a mother or a father to soothe them. The word is co-regulate with them so that they calm down and gain regulation. We do this with the little one over and over again for literally 3 years, for some a little longer if they didn't get it at the beginning in a good way. And then obviously, if this doesn't happen at the beginning, as adults, we're still figuring out how to self-regulate. So when that little baby is born, the reason the mom knows, and this is of course a mother that's attuned, that's the hunger cue, that's the cold cue, that's the I'm too hot cue. Oh, baby's burning up in the face, they're too warm, maybe they have a fever. The belly being bloated, we need to help some gas move. Being uncomfortable in a wet diaper. The sounds and the gestures that a newborn infant and up until many months gives off, those sounds and gestures, gives cues and clues to the mom. Little one needs this. Now, if we didn't get this, and this was key for many of us did not have that attunement. That's the word. We didn't have our needs met. This is what that means. We didn't get co-regulated with when we were out of regulation, when we were upset and unwell and hungry. So if we don't get that, what happens, and it can go a few ways, but we start to shut down from our body. We stop feeling it. We stop asking for what we need. So one route that some of us will go is we'll start to shut down. We'll start to go into collapse. All of that fight and fire and listen to me, I'm here, gosh darn it, like listen, take care of me. It starts to dissolve and disappear. This is where we get the baby that doesn't cry. How many of us were told you were such a good baby? You never cried, you never fussed. That's not good, right? We need a little bit of that. Very different than a baby that doesn't stop crying. But we need that feedback. What often occurs with those who are stuck in that collapse and freeze, this has been deeply connected with autoimmune conditions, fibromyalgia, chronic pain, chronic fatigue, adrenal fatigue, deep depression, like true biological, we would call it analytic depression, where it isn't just I'm a little sad today because something didn't go right. It's like it is always there, it's pervasive. Others, if they didn't get that attunement, they sometimes can stay in a hyper alert zone. They're always activated. They're always on alert. There's this hyperactivity. There's this unsettledness that is always there. They live more in fight, flight. For whatever reason, their physiology doesn't go into collapse. And so what we have is we push forward into our adult years and we are driven by the stress physiology that we have created because we had to stay safe. So you're a 20-year-old, a 30-year-old, a 55-year-old, an 85-year-old, and you're still living in that survival stress, most likely when we're older with some form of illness, mental illness, trouble with relationships, because we cannot live well when we live in that survival stress. So to come back to the question, what are the lessons about? The lessons are about teaching you how to reconnect with your biological impulses. They're teaching you how to feel into what it means to listen into this body. This is called introception. And then you are guided to follow impulse, to reconnect to the touch of your body, to how you move, how you act, how you orient with the world. Those are what the lessons are about. And gosh, I wish it was easier to explain. And the students that I have will say, I didn't understand at the beginning why and how something so subtle and so gentle, and this is what happens in the first few weeks, it's so subtle, how that was able to heal all these things and let me find the partner of my dreams, the career that I've always wanted, or, move out of a toxic relationship or change careers, those sorts of things. So lessons are very simple, painfully simple for some, because many of us are used to lots of cathartic energy, lots of big, fast movements, and lots of heavy breathing, and lots of sound emitting. And not that that stuff doesn't play a part at some times, but that early upbringing and regulation that we teach our little ones is what we're laying down, and it is very foundational and very important. Again, cannot recommend listening to the alumni calls that I had with my students the other day. So, back to that question of the difference between the 21 days versus SBSM. I created the 21 days so that when we weren't in registration for SBSM, and someone came into my world, they could start something. And so 21 days has been curated from SBSM. The 21 lessons in 21 days, most of them are inspired or they're directly from the Smart Body, Smart Mind content. What we don't get into in 21 days, because you can only get through so much in 21 days, we do not work with the stress organs. We do not work with the earlier trauma responses because we need time for that. We need build up for that. So in many ways, if one is here and they can invest now, I suggest SBSM as a start. It is actually titrated, in my opinion, in a way that is a bit more paced and a bit more resourced. Not to say that you can't do that with the 21 days, but many people in the 21 days continue into SBSM because they need those extra layers of working with the early trauma, working with healthy aggression. This comes into Smart Body, Smart Mind. Again, we cannot cover that in 21 days. Someone asks, can you oscillate between both? My sense is you mean between the two programs. You can, but you don't need to. When you're in Smart Body, Smart Mind, that is enough. And then many of our 21 dayers will pause where they're at in the 21 days. They'll start Smart Body, Smart Mind. They'll work through. They'll realize that there's a lot to work with there. And then they might go back and redo the 21 days at some other time. I'm looking at my Post-it note. The other big difference between the 21 days, I would say, and SBSM, there's less... not that you can't ask questions. You can totally ask questions in 21 days. But in SBSM, my husband and colleague Seth Lyon, we're actually going to do a live tomorrow on YouTube. And we did a live last week on YouTube on dysregulation and parenting and trauma. He does the Q&A calls. So you get his brain and his expertise. He's also trained in somatic experiencing, in somatic practice. And so he's fully versed in answering all these things. He sometimes stays a little more on point than I do. Obviously, we're different, and people really enjoy those question and answer calls because it just provides a slightly different perspective. That was the question. So someone asked, can we oscillate between freeze versus activation? 100%. So these survival stresses, fight, flight, and freeze, they don't live in silos. So most of us have a variety of both. Depends on the circumstance, it depends on our energy levels, where we are. And so we might go into some social situations and we totally shut down. And then we might go into another situation and we get activated. Our fight flight comes up. And there are even some of us who will have body parts that are more likened to shut down and other parts that are more likened to be activated, right? We tend to think of the heart as when we're panicked, it pumps really hard and really fast. And that might happen while a person is also in deep collapse in their fascia. And there's so much tension. This is something I've experienced where we're kind of moving between these really sophisticated layers of protection. And that's again where humans are really complex creatures. We're not just straight-laced, there's a trauma, let's shake it out, let's go back to normal like the animals in the wild do. We are so complex because we have this mammalian physiology and we have this higher brain that has created culture and society and rules and conditioning and all the things that we live through that really hinder us from being truly in our biology, in our power, in our, I know it's a trendy word, but in our authenticity. We need to be in good regulation of our nervous system to actually be who we're supposed to be. And this was something that came up today on my call with my alum, is when we have more regulation on board, we have more natural creativity. And it's creativity that is sustainable as opposed to creativity that burns us out to the point where we don't have any more juice left. So there is this interesting thing that occurs when we become more regulated. We start to actually express our real potential. Whereas when we're living in survival stress, we're living in what's called a false window of tolerance. It's not real. It's driven by false energy, by survival energy, either high levels of activation or deep levels of functional freeze. I was there. I was deeply living in functional freeze up until just not too long ago, the last couple of years. So you can do a lot when you're dysregulated, but it comes at a price at the physiological level. The system can't keep going with the gas on and the brake on at the same time. Pacing. So someone asked, do you need to work with the content back to back each week, or can you take your time? You take your time. This is probably one of the biggest pieces of learning that is hardest for us to understand, living in a world where we were schooled in systems where you had to show up on time, you had to have your assignments done, or you didn't pass the test, or you didn't pass the grade. This isn't like that. There is a curriculum. It's set with the numbers 1 through 10. We do go through in a process of a semester. So that can make it seem like we need to keep up, but we still live in a 3-day world where there is time and there is beginnings and endings. So we have a beginning and an ending of the live semester, but the material and the content is more holographic, meaning you come in and you do a little bit and then you come out. And then maybe you attend a training call, maybe you just listen to 20 minutes of it and you do the rest a week later. Maybe you listen to the Q&A call while you're chopping vegetables, while you're making dinner, and you just kind of let the information kind of seep around you. And then maybe, the next day you do an exercise and you be more intentional with the practice. So there's so many ways in which our students engage with the material. And the key is that you listen to when your body says, take a break. And let this process, let this integrate. And you have the content whenever you want. You can go back into it. You can learn at your own pace when you want. There's no need to do things by the book. Why do I binge eat when I'm super dysregulated? Well, I can't speak to you personally, but from experience with working with others, people will binge or restrict as a way to control. So it's a way of controlling our sustenance or adding more. When we eat, it activates obviously our gut, our mouth, parts of our vagus nerve, and it can cause us to find soothing. It actually can soothe us. Another reason why people binge eat, again, these are all experiences I've heard, is a person can be so shut down in their body and so disconnected and numb from their body that the only way to feel anything in their internal organs is to overeat to the point where their stomach is so distended that it hurts. And that's another reason why folks overeat. But yeah, so control, soothing, and numbness. And so we overeat to feel. That's one way. 2 ways, 3 ways. Thanks there. Someone said, best course ever. Thank you. Yes. I don't say these things, my students do. So again, just a reminder, I'm going to wrap this up. Registration is open now. It will be open until tomorrow, end of day, Tuesday. We will be answering questions as much as we can via Instagram, but also one of the better ways is to email us. Good old email, support@irenelyon.com. The FAQ page on the course site has so many questions and answers. And then tomorrow I'm going to be doing a Q&A call on YouTube live with my husband, Seth. We will be sitting in here side by side, running through again the basics, but answering your questions. And as I said, the core premise of Smart Body, Smart Mind, it's even in the title, Smart Body. We need our bodies to be smart. They need to be intelligent. They need to have connection to self and the environment. We need our bodies to be regulated and resilient and in flow. When they are stuck in survival, it creates so much turmoil, so much illness, so much pain, and unneeded suffering. Doesn't mean that we will not feel pain. It doesn't mean we will not feel suffering. It doesn't mean that there won't be moments when we're freaking out and stressed. But the key is that when you have better regulation and capacity on board, you can handle these things like that. And students will say, when I get into this course, what would take me a month, for some months, to recover from, it's happening not just in days, but in hours, if not minutes. And that's because the system isn't filled with stress. It is not filled with survival stress, and it's filled with capacity, and it has been listened to, right? So if we go back to that baby, I always go back to this baby example. When that baby is listened to and attuned to and given what it needs in those first 3 years of life, it builds solid self-regulation. And from that, it can handle way more. And so if we didn't get that, this is why we do this as an adult. We relearn how to build our regulation. And the good news is, as humans, we have the capacity to shift and heal. Even when we've had the most horrific, disgusting, terrible things happen to us, if we are choosing to do this work and not stay stuck in the past and stay stuck as, I just released a video on this, stuck as victims, right? We acknowledge we've been victimized. We acknowledge there was abuse, but then we're like, I need to go forward. I need to look forward because getting stuck in these past things isn't helping me. Humans can do that, right? This is why we are different from other animals. We can make a conscious free will choice to change this because of this higher brain. So a big part of this course is relearning how to learn as well. There's so many reasons, so many parts of this course, but you're relearning how to learn so that you can heal your own system. And like I always say, become your own medicine. So let's see here. Yes, so as alumni, when you come back to redo or you go back into the site, it's yours. There's no extra charge, right? Granted, you've paid your tuition or your 12 pay. You come back and you can redo the program. Again, so much of this information is on the FAQ page. Really, if you're really seriously thinking about joining, take a little extra time to go over to that site. Don't just scroll fast. Pause, click on the FAQ page, and read each question slowly and feel into your body. Do I need to have that question answered? Click on it, it expands, have a read. Take a break, go back, go through the questions. Really take the time and honor this potential investment by doing your due diligence and listening to the answers that are already there on that page. But yes, alumni get to do this over and over again. I am reading the questions, you guys. So maybe I've missed something. If I've missed something, then please send that to our support email and we will get back to you. Someone says, I feel like electricity is running through my body when going to sleep. This is often survival stress. It is the system buzzing with survival stress. I mean, if you're sleeping next to a router, that could be it too. If there's a big buzzing electrical outlet by your bed and something's plugged in, that's a real thing. That could impact us too. So make sure you don't have, a Wi-Fi router right by your head or right on the other side of your bedroom. These are things that can cause us to feel a buzzing. But often what's occurring is it is our survival chemistry. It's our fight, it's our flight that is on 24/7. And it makes it such that we can't sleep, and we can't sleep in a way that is restful. I just covered the difference between the 21-day and SBSM, so come back to this video afterwards or go to the FAQ page. There is, I'm going to look it up right now if I can, the actual number. It is there, right? So it is on that page. If you go to question number... Give me 2 seconds here. FAQs. It's the first question. So the very first question on the FAQ page, what is the difference between SBSM and the 21-day tune-up? It's all there. So head over there. This program, so SBSM, we open up registration twice a year. Typically, it's going to be back up in end of Feb. So I would really highly suggest if you're like, kind of like, I want to, but I'm not sure, see what it's like to go with your gut. Go with the gut. All right, friends. Will you be doing a certification program? I just started mentoring some students, and so the first sort of intake has happened. My sense is we will run something in the next couple of years, but I will say this, one must be fully adept and practiced in SBSM material to even apply for the next level of certification, professional training with me. It has shown me that when we all have that common denominator of deep regulation and understanding of these somatic principles and practices in the way that my last 2 cohorts of practitioners and training have gotten, it really makes the teaching at that professional level flow much easier. So do not underestimate the power in starting with SBSM as a way to gain your own self-regulation first. We cannot do well this work if we're not regulated ourselves. I don't know how to stress that more other than saying, I know that to be true. My students have found that to be true. When you get this on board at the personal level, the learning as a profession, it just comes a lot faster. So that will happen in due time, but definitely get into SBSM if you haven't yet. Thank you everyone for being here and listening to me talk about all these things. If you have any questions, like I said, that FAQ page, or just type in the thing that you're interested and my name into Google or YouTube, and you just might get an answer, because there are over 450 videos up there and hundreds of articles that I've written and many podcasts I've been on where I talk about different topics. So check all those out. I'll be back in tomorrow on YouTube to talk and do more questions. We'll see you later. Bye, everyone.